Like, unless you're in Canada or a Canadian is making poutine, what Matt was trying, and Serena P, she was like, is it good? And Matt was like, I was like, you damn well know that did not taste right. Like, that tasted disgusting. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. And so today's video is going to be a reaction about The Bachelor episode 8. And so this season of The Bachelor has actually been really crazy. There's been a lot of intense fights between the girls competing for Matt James. And Matt James is the first ever Black Bachelor. And this was after last year during the Black Lives Matter protests, and a couple people were on social media saying that we need a Black Bachelor. It's been how many seasons and we still haven't had a Black Bachelor. The Bachelor has already, well, the Bachelor and Bachelorette franchise, they've already had their first Black Bachelorette, Rachel Lindsay, and there's been a lot of controversy actually surrounding the Bachelor, Rachel Lindsay, one of the contestants on Matt's season, who they found with a lot of evidence of being racist and her family liking and doing a lot of offensive things concerning minorities. And so his season is a mess. It's actually more focused, the producers have mostly focused on the drama instead of Matt finding love. And so in episode 8, we see Matt in his final four. And the final four, Matt meets the families of the 4 women. And the 4 women are Bree, Michelle, Rachel, and Serena P. And so I'll go into their hometown meetups and then also the dates before the hometown meetups with their families. And I took a couple notes here, so bear with me. Okay, so the first date is with Michelle. And Michelle is 27, she's a teacher from Minnesota, and she's an athlete just like Matt. She played basketball in college, and I liked Michelle's date. I thought it was very wholesome. They go on like a cute little bike ride, and it just showed the type of person she is. Mature, knows what she wants, comes from a loving background. They talk about, you know, what they want in each other. And one of the things Michelle does on her date, she takes Matt to this like arena, or no, I wouldn't call it arena, maybe like a lecture hall, and her students, they appear in a Zoom call and they're asking Matt all these questions about how he feels about her. Honestly, the kids were completely hot with the questions. Like, the kids were asking him questions better than Chris Harrison or any of the other contestants were asking him. They're like, do you love her? Did you guys kiss? What do you think about Miss Young? Because Michelle's last name is Miss Young. They were asking if he is going to propose to her, he was going to pick her. And Matt was laughing uncomfortably. And I get it, you know, children, they have no chill. They will straight up just tell you how they feel, which is a good thing. But I can understand why he would feel a little bit uncomfortable because he's talking to 3 other women. And so you can't just tell the kids or tell anybody, like, yeah, I'm going to pick her. But I want Matt to pick her, so anyway, their date is like really cute. You know, it ends with them just on the bike ride and talking and yada yada yada. And then we get into hometowns when he meets her family. And so Michelle's family is her dad and her mom. They're the ones that come over, and her parents are so wholesome. I mean, they're from Minnesota, and I just saw that cute Minnesota nice personality from them. Like, I see where Michelle gets it from. And they asked Matt really good questions, I think, because the Ephraim, that's Michelle's father, he was like, okay, how do you feel about Michelle? And Matt, I felt, was contradicting, because Michelle told her parents, she was like, I'm falling in love with Matt. And when her dad asked Matt how he's feeling about her and said, you know, Michelle feels like she's falling in love with you, Matt was like, well, I don't want to say I'm falling in love with her until I mean it. And I was like, okay, then what are you doing keeping her here if you don't even feel the same way? And for those of you who've been watching The Bachelor, Matt has already told Rachel, yes, the Rachel that is in a lot of hot water right now because of the whole racism posts and all that stuff. He's already told Rachel that he's falling in love with her. So I don't think it's fair to Michelle that Matt is saying, oh, I'll say it when I mean it. And I'm like, okay, so then what are you doing with Michelle? Anyway, so he tries to assure her parents that he feels a certain type of way with Michelle and that he could see them together because they both have similar qualities, similar interests. And I mean, they eventually were like, okay, thank you. But then when Michelle's mom, Lavon, when she asks Michelle, okay, like, how are you feeling? And Michelle's like, well, I love him and I could see myself marrying him. Michelle's mom, she asked her, okay, like, if he were to propose to you, would you say yes? Michelle was like, yes. And I could totally tell, like, she seemed smitten with him. And her parents could tell. They were like, okay, you seem like you love this guy, actually. And I think Michelle is up there with Matt. They just seem to make sense. Like, at the end of their hometowns, they were all playing basketball in like a little courtyard outside of her parents' lodge, and I was like, they just make sense. Like, on paper they make sense. Like, can you imagine going to their wedding if that were to happen and you'd be like, oh, welcome to the wedding of Matt and Michelle? It just flows together. Hi, this is my wife Michelle and I'm Matt. Like, they just flow together. They're both tall, they both play sports, like, they just make sense. But that's up to Matt, and as much as I think he really does feel for her or like feel something about her, I don't know. The way Chris Harrison was defending Rachel, I don't know. So that was Michelle's date. And then the next one was Rachel. And her date, I think, represents, at least to me, and I think to a lot of the viewers, the dynamic of the relationship. Matt, a couple people, I mean, I don't follow him on social media, but a couple people that do, they've talked about his TikToks and how he's very silly and just, loose on there, like the very stiff and reserved personality that we see of him on The Bachelor is not the same when they watch him on social media. So that's interesting. It sucks that we never got to see his full personality, and maybe because this was his first time being on this show, he was probably really nervous, so I guess I can understand that. But in terms of Rachel and Matt's relationship, I don't see anything that makes me think, oh, okay, they have something that they connect on. I don't see it. And I know a lot of viewers feel the same way too. We're just like, okay, Rachel, how is she going this far into the competition? What do you guys have in common? And when Matt talks about Rachel, he was like, we just connect so well. I see a lot of qualities in her. And I'm just like, what qualities? What do you have in common? Like, what are you talking about that we don't know? And so Rachel's date, she took him skydiving. And Rachel ended up face planting onto the ground. And it kind of looked like it hurt, but she was like, it's alright. She's like, I'm okay. My back hurt, but I'm okay. And so Rachel's family, well, okay, no, let me not go into the hometowns yet. But so they go skydiving, and Matt, when he's with Rachel, you could see him smiling. Like, he actually looks at her with some meaning. And he said in one of his one-on-one interviews that when Rachel hit the ground, he was so worried about her. Well, obviously, you would do that for anybody. But he was like, I just saw, if we were together, I wouldn't want to lose her. Like, he really seems smitten with her. And every time I see Rachel around with Matt, I just get a fake vibe from her. When she goes through her like one-on-ones, talk about how she feels about him, or when she looks like she's trying to be vulnerable or trying to be emotional, she cries, but there's no tears coming out of her eyes. So I don't find that genuine at all. And she always has this kind of smirk on her face that just doesn't seem like that smirk, like, I got this man in the bag, like, y'all ain't got nothing on me. I don't see anything genuine with her reactions. And even when they kiss, he seems into it, but she seems like, not feeling it. And so I thought that represented their relationship, at least to me, that, it's silly, it's immature. Matt is feeling her for whatever reason. Maybe he thinks she's hot. Okay, but in terms of how they connect deeper, I don't see it. So then later on in the evening, Rachel's family meets Matt. And so at this point, because we've already seen the rumors about Rachel and her family and them liking, Confederate flags and pro Blue Lives Matter and anti Black Lives Matter posts and just offensive comments like saying and doing racist things, and Rachel taking a photo and going to a party, a Southern Plantation themed party in 2018, even though the fraternity that did the party, the national chapter banned it, so you can't tell me she didn't know that that was a thing. But so there's already like tension, and I think people were already anticipating like, okay, how's it gonna go with Rachel's family? And Rachel's family, they do not seem convinced at all with Matt. They were just like, okay, we'll support you, but they were surprised. And putting aside the racism for a bit, Rachel's dad especially was like, okay, this is a very fast process. You've only known each other for what, a couple weeks, maybe almost 2 months, and so like Rachel's dad was like, there's an engagement at the end of this. Like, can you see yourself getting engaged to him? And he asked Matt, he's like, this is a very fast process. Like, how do you feel about her? And how, marriage is very serious and engagement is a serious thing. And I thought that was reasonable from Rachel's family, because it's just like, okay, this is very serious. An engagement is not something to mess around with. Can engagements be broken? Yes. But usually when you propose to someone and you are declaring your intentions to marry the person you're proposing to, and that at least portrays to, if not to the person you're proposing to, but to the people who know about the proposal, that you plan on being serious with this person. It's commitment. And Rachel, she wasn't even looking her parents in the eye when they were asking her, okay, do you really love him? Like, what about him do you like? And I was asking the same question too, and I'm sure a lot of viewers are asking, like, what is going on here? What is between you two that we're not seeing? And I felt like she didn't really give an answer. She was like, oh, he really cares about me. He cares about me. He does this for me. I was testing a lot of, he's doing all this for me, but what are you bringing to the table, right? And when Matt speaks to Rachel's dad, he tells her that he's falling in love with her. He practically declared his love for Rachel. So just to finish up my points about Rachel's date and how Matt pretty much declared his feelings for Rachel to her parents, and how Rachel's parents were just skeptical. They weren't really feeling it. And I thought it was very not genuine of Matt to tell Rachel and tell Rachel's parents that he's falling in love with her, yet he's wishy-washy with the other girls. He'll just get just far enough. He'll be like, "Oh, I'm falling for you," and he'll tell their parents that, "Oh, I'm falling for them," but he doesn't quite commit. And since he's pretty much made his mind up about Rachel, that that's the one for him, I don't see why he's keeping the other three girls along. And then in the next clip, I'm going to be talking about Bree's date. And Bree's date was boring, I think. She was just driving around in a Jeep. And she said it was payback for Matt taking her on an ATV ride and having her ATV flip over and there was mud all over her. So, pretty lackluster date. But then her and Matt have a conversation about their feelings for each other, and Matt says the same thing, I'm falling for you, I really care about you, you have the qualities I'm looking for in a wife. And they talk about how they trauma bond pretty much. Bree tells Matt that she doesn't come from a conventional family because Bree comes from a single mom household, and Matt was like, I understand. I come from a single family household as well. And then they kiss. And so in the evening, Bree introduces Matt to her family, and we see Bree's mom, Bree's baby sister, because Bree's mom had Bree when she was really young, and Bree's mom is now engaged to someone else, and so they have a kid and Bree's little baby sister. And also Bree's best friend, who is also named Bree, shows up to meet Matt. And in the next clip, I just talk about the rest of the hometown date with Bree and how that went. So, continue. So Bree's baby sister, she meets Matt, and she's just crying, obviously, because she's only a couple months old, she's a baby. And Matt, he just looks so uncomfortable, out of his element, and he tries to like shake the baby's hand, and she cries. And hey, babies, they know when someone is not right. And I think Bree's baby sister knows that Matt is not really feeling Bree like that because she kept on crying. She didn't even like hold Matt's hand. She was just like, like go on somewhere else. So Bree's baby sister knows that Matt ain't really feeling her like that. I think Matt's very attracted to Bree, and obviously because Bree's gorgeous, but and then besides, them trauma bonding over them having single moms, I don't see anything else that Matt is connecting with Bree on a deeper level. And Matt, when Matt talks to Bree's mom and Bree's friend Bree, Matt tells them, I feel for her, I like her a lot. The same thing he's told the other women and their families, except for Rachel's. And Matt's, sorry, Bree's mom is just like, oh, okay, well, I care about my daughter a lot. Like, I hope you're being really serious with her. And then when Bree speaks to her mom, Bree's mom is like, okay, how do you feel about him? Because this is obviously really serious. And Bree tells her mom that, I definitely am falling in love with him, but I'm just afraid to say it. And Bree's mom just says, if you feel that way in your heart, you should definitely tell him. And in the end, at the end of the hometown date, Bree does tell Matt that she's falling in love with him, and Matt, being the sliced bread that he is, repeats the same talking point. Thank you for sharing that with me. And then they kiss, and then he leaves. So, in terms of Matt's connection with Bree, I think he does care about her, but it's just surface level. And besides the trauma bonding, I don't know if I see them staying past that. And then, of course, he's attracted to her. So then we get to Serena P, the last girl in his final four. And Serena P, from the last date that Matt had with her, she wasn't even expecting it. Because Serena P had already went on a date before with Matt. So Matt took her on 2 one-on-ones. And on that date, Serena P was uncomfortable because they did this like tantric yoga thing where they had to be really close physically. And Serena P straight up told Matt that she wasn't feeling comfortable. She wasn't having it. And Matt was like, huh? But then he was like, okay, like, I'm sorry, whatever. And so Serena P's hometown date with Matt, she does this like cutesy Canadian themed date because Serena P is Canadian. She tells Matt trivia, like Canadian trivia. She lets him try all this typical Canadian food. Um, if you know anything about Canadian food, poutine is like one of the national foods out there. And the poutine that they showed for Matt to try, it looked disgusting. I mean, it didn't look like proper poutine. I have Canadian friends, and I haven't had poutine myself, but from the pictures they showed me and from the places they've gone, I was like, that's not authentic poutine. Like, unless you're in Canada or a Canadian is making poutine, what Matt was trying, and Serena P, she was like, is it good? And Matt was like, I was like, you damn well know that did not taste right. Like, that tasted disgusting. But yeah, like, it was a cute date, but I didn't see any chemistry, and I still feel like Serena P was kind of holding back a little. And Serena P, like, she's naturally pretty hyper. We've seen that about her throughout the competition, but she was more reserved on this date today, and we see that on her hometowns. So Serena P's family meets Matt, and they're very practical, like the other families. And her sister and her mom, because Matt meets Serena P's mom, her sister, and her dad. And both her sister and her mom kind of break it down for her. They're like, look, how do you feel about him? How do you really feel about him? And Serena P's like, well, I like him a lot. He's very kind to me. He's very good to me. But there's just something missing. And Serena P's sister, she wonders if it was because of her previous breakup, and that really affected her. And Serena P has talked about it in the past on the show. She was like, I was really in love with my ex, and then it just didn't work out. And so her sister was like, maybe that's affecting your judgment. Are you afraid to like say how you really feel about him because of that? Or do you just not love him? And her mom also reiterates that too. She was like, okay, how do you feel about him? And then Matt meets her parents and they say, okay, how do you feel about her? And Matt's like, I've been falling for her since day one. He doesn't say he's falling in love with her, but he says he's been falling for her since day one. There was something about her that connected to him. And, you know, he said the same flowery things. But Serena P is still very much in doubt. Like after speaking to her parents, and then she speaks to Matt, and she tells Matt, you know, I've been kind of having some doubts, but I really care about you, and you can already see a breakup's about to come. And Matt just is like, okay, you know, I really do like you. I really do care about you. I am falling for you. And Serena P's just like, well, yeah. She's kind of like, thank you. And so their ending was really awkward. And so it gets more intense because Matt realizes after a while that Serena P is holding back something, that she doesn't seem like she's quite there yet. And so Matt confronts her before the rose ceremony, and she basically admits it to him. She was like, look, like, I thought it was because I was afraid of falling in love with you, but it's just, I'm not feeling that with you yet. And Matt is silent. Like, he was silent for a while. He was like, damn, I really wished it would work out. And Serena P was like, I'm so sorry, you know. And she leaves. He self-eliminates. And so we get to the rose ceremony, and it's just Bree, Michelle, and Rachel. And in the order, Matt picks Bree. No, sorry. Whoop. Matt picks Michelle. Then he picks Rachel, and then he picks Bree. And so these are the final three that are going into fantasy suites. And Matt pretty much reiterates to the girls, he's like, look, I'm trying to find my wife, and I hope you guys feel the same way about me the way I feel about you, because Matt was pretty shaken up after Serena P pretty much broke up with him. He looked like he really cared for Serena P. And Serena P, I mean, she was honest about her feelings at the end and just was like, I can't do this. So we'll see what fantasy suites are going to be like. I didn't see much footage about Bree on the previews for next episode, and even Bree said it herself. She was like, I don't know where Matt's head is at, because she was picked last at the rose ceremony. And so, yeah, like, we're going to watch this unfold. I can't wait till we get to the end. I feel like it's taking too long. And there's also going to be the Women Tell All, where all the other previous eliminated contestants will speak about their time on the show. So that's going to be a lot of drama. And we're also going to be following up the developments with Chris Harrison and all the drama going on. And so, yeah, if you like this video, please be sure to click that like button. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel for more reaction to things like this, please be sure to click that subscribe button. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.